very respected speaker of this evening, CA Saurabh Goenka, Secretary of SIRC, CA Panaraj, members of this profession, very good evening to all of you. Dear members, before I formally proceed with my opening remarks and welcome address for this excellent program, I had to record with deep regret the passing away of one of the giants of our profession, CA Sundarajan sir, the past president of ICAI, yesterday night. He was great source of inspiration to all of us. On 24th February this year, he had completed 70 years of professional practice. His contribution to the profession is in various capacities in ICAI is immeasurable. CA Sundarajan was the president of ICAI in the year 1992-93, Central Council member of ICAI between 1985 to 1995, and for a term in 1958 to 1961, he was a member of Regional Council and was vice chairman. In his passing away, the profession has lost one of illustrious personalities who served our professional fraternity with passion, dedication, and devotion. As a mark of respect to the departed soul, I request the participant to stand and observe 2 minutes silence. Thank you, members. Yesterday, as a part of a refresher course on information technology, we had an informative session on 2 topics in the field of information technology. And to sharpen our knowledge further, we have today 2 exceptional speakers of eminence, CA Saurabh Goenka, who will speak on audit using artificial intelligence, and Shri Narendranath Nair on blockchain technology, who will make this evening very much useful and adding value to our professional skills. Our profession has been witnessing enormous amount of professional opportunities and the scope of work in the technology front too, where innovations in the information technology like the audit using artificial intelligence, blockchain technology, the cloud accounting, cyber security have come to play a pivotal role. It is therefore necessary that the members are kept abreast on the features and the benefits of these technologies to enhance our professional services. Artificial intelligence in government department is one of the emerging technologies being utilized by the government departments to be more productive, efficient, and with much higher degree of accuracy. It is a futuristic technology that harnesses the ability to learn and perform the functions. The government therefore invests a substantial amount of investment in this direction. Besides, this technology is widely used in other business processes. Let us hear the inner aspects governing the concept of artificial intelligence from our learned speaker, Shri Saurabh. On behalf of SIRC of ICAI, I welcome him for this evening session. The topic on blockchain is a contemporary technology, a system of recording information that is resistant to any modification of the data because of its design and structure. It is considered to be a cost-effective and promises to bring trust in transactions. It serves as an alternative to financial transactions without any intermediaries. More about to learn how blockchain technology business model works and its usage, Shri Narendranath Nair, who is going to join shortly. He will enlighten us in this evening with this insightful address. I once again urge upon all of you to stay home, stay safe, exhort our neighbors near and dear to observe strict adherence to the guidelines and protocols issued by the central and state government as well, and follow the advice of health experts to successfully combat the pandemic. My sincere thanks to all the participants for our active participation, and welcome you all for this second day of refresher course on information technology. With these few words, I welcome once again to all the participants. I request C. Panaraj sir to introduce the speaker of first technical session.
Thank you, Chairman, for setting the tone for the day. Being second day of this refresher course on technology, I take this opportunity to introduce Saurabh Goenka ji to the audience. He is a chartered accountant and a digital transformation professional with more than a decade's experience in process automation, process improvement, digital transformation, and strategy leadership. Having worked on multiple process transformation initiatives for large organizations, he helps organizations in scaling and democratizing digital transformation, and also shares this knowledge across multiple conferences and industry events on digital transformation. Using his proprietary ROQS framework and more than 20,000 man-hours of strategy and digital transformation consulting, Saurabh is seen as a go-to industry expert for digital transformation solutions. Co-founded by him, MindMap Digital is a bridge between ideas and solutions for all who carry the vision of adopting digital and scaling processes to be truly ready for a global digital economy. He has also created a very large digital skilling academy in the form of MindMap Learning, and is working on an EdTech platform to give access to the world-class, affordable, and job-oriented digital skilling ecosystem to at least 1 million users by the year 2022. With this, I proudly welcome you again and present you before the audience. Over to you, Saurabh.
Thank you so much, Secretary Sir, for introducing me, and Chairman Sir for having me. Before I begin, I just want to, make sure that everybody's at home, everybody's safe. We're all going through a tough time right now, and like always, these tough times will pass. It's important that we stay in community, we support each other, and just maybe enjoy this time with family. We have to see the positive side of things. Once again, thank you so much for having me. I'm just going to start sharing my screen, and then I will take it from there. Let me know if you guys are able to see my screen now. Can you see my screen?
No, sir. Not able to see, sir. Yeah, I think it's okay.
Yeah. Now is it working fine?
Fine, sir. Fine, sir.
Great. All right, guys. So I'm just going to stop my video so that there is, I consume some bandwidth on my side. And great. So today's topic is about using artificial intelligence and the impact of artificial intelligence on the CA profession. And the way I want to do it is that, of course, the whole intention of this whole session is for you to basically understand in a nutshell what all of these technologies are, specifically around AI, and then what does it mean for the CA profession, right? If there is this technology called AI, how will it really impact audit? How will it impact your world? So to do that, we will first understand what is AI and how does it work. We'll understand the origins of AI and where are we headed. What are the different types of artificial intelligence, right? And there are so many other related terms which are used, like machine learning, deep learning, neural networks, and lots of different things. So you will get a clarification of what all of these different things mean, right? The idea is that you should be able to use that jargon when you work with them. And then we'll specifically move around into what are the different application areas of AI in the world of audit, and how is it that AI can really impact audit. And then I'll give you some examples and use cases of how artificial intelligence is being used. How is AI going to impact our CA profession and specifically audit? And then finally, what are the professional opportunities which basically lie ahead, and what are the skill sets which you need as a chartered accountant to embrace this technology and do something with it in your profession, right? I mean, I'm sure that we have a mix of participants. Some of us would be practicing, some of us would be working in the industry, some of us are leaders of large corporate giants. So depending on wherever you are, my intention is that you should start looking at this technology in some shape or form, and by the end of today have enough curiosity and insights to create some kind of a working model by which you can start doing something in the AI world yourself, right? And guys, as we go through this, at any point of time, I have about 60 minutes with you, roughly about 45 to 50 minutes left with you. And then in this period, wherever you have a question, while I will still have about 5 minutes towards the end, but I don't want to basically, restrict questions till the end. Please continuously put in your questions in the chat box, and questions which you have. Not just that, but I will also be asking you some questions, so you can put in the answers to those questions as well. I intend the session to be interactive, even though you will not be speaking a lot, but still, please participate with me. And the whole idea is, how can you basically gain from the session and take something back home, right? So to begin, I always begin with a very bold statement like this, which says the world is changing and intelligence is leading that change right now. The world has always changed. There's nothing new about that. But what has really changed and what is different this time is that the pace of that change has become massive. If you break down the phase of industrial revolution and industrial transformations, today we are in a phase which is called Industry 4.0. Now, the first industrial revolution, it kind of took place long back when the first steam engine was invented. It took maybe about 300 years for the world to create the first major invention like the steam engine. Then going from the steam engine to something like electricity took maybe another 100 years. But if you just look at the way we live our lives in the past, say 5 to 10 years, all of it has massively and phenomenally transformed, right? I mean, it's not the same. The kind of technology that exists today, it did not exist earlier. And since all of this is driven around data, you would have seen that most of the major acquisitions have been data companies and companies which can work with data. And data is literally the new oil, right? So all of this change is being led by intelligence, or artificial intelligence, and the world of information technology, right? Now, before I proceed, I have a quick question for you. Does anybody know who this lady here is? Any guesses? You can put that in the chat box, and if anybody knows who this lady is, if you can put some of your comments, I would want to see. It's a quick question for you. I don't know if you guys can probably write in the chat box. Does anybody know who this lady is? No one? Okay. So I'm going to try to play a video here. Let's see if you are able to see the video. And yeah, I can see some responses. I have people saying she's a robot, she's an AI. Somebody gave the right answer. Sharmila, you gave the right answer. She is Sophia, humanoid Sophia Kishan. Great. Great, guys. Thanks for the participation and giving me all of these different answers. Now, I'm just going to try to play a video here. I'm not sure if you will get the audio, but let's still try. Are you guys able to hear the audio on the video? You can just let me know. If not, I will do a quick voiceover. Is anybody able to? No audio, right? Okay, so how about now? Is there any audio now?
Muted.
Sorry, can you guys hear audio?
No, sir.
Not
No audio. Okay, so I'll skip through the video. So basically, you know, this is a video of Sophia, and if you see the way she's interacting, she looks just like a human being, right? And let me just forward this video slightly, and you will see that, you know, she's right now speaking on a forum where she has just been given the citizenship as a citizen of Saudi Arabia, right? Now, this basically brings me to the question. It's a very simple question. Did you ever anticipate that in your lifetimes, a robot could be granted the citizenship of an advanced economy like Saudi Arabia, right? Again, quick question for you. You know, how many of you anticipated that one day you will see robots becoming citizens of advanced countries like these? I think, you know, most of the times I ask this question to people, there's a resounding answer that no, we did not really assume that something like this can happen. And my question to you is this. Now, what I urge you to do is, you know, when you go back today, see some videos of Sophia in action. There are lots of videos on YouTube. She participates in interviews and things like that. And she's a robot with whom you can interact. You can interact with her. You can ask her questions. She answers you back. If we did not foresee the coming of an advanced technology like this, what makes us think that we probably can't foresee, you know, similar things which can come in and impact our profession in a major way? Let me give you an example. Let's say that somebody builds an artificial intelligence bot which is able to do the entire audit, or which is able to do the entire compliance piece of it. And believe it or not, guys, you know, I'll share examples today. This is not really something which is still in the conceptualization phase. I have personally worked with organizations who are creating tools to infuse a layer of artificial intelligence in audit. And you know, I'm working with another company which is integrating their entire SAP-based accounting system using a voice command feature. So you could literally pick up your phone and you could be like, "Hey Siri, can you please pass this accounting entry for me?" Or, "Hey Siri, can you you know, reconcile the balances of my accounts for me and give me a report," right? So all of those things are happening, and that's the reason why we need to be really concerned about what all this is about, right? And then there's another video here about this company called Soul Machines. Again, I'll not go into details. I'll probably, because we can't hear the audio here, but I'll share links of these videos later with you and with the organizers so that you can take a look at it. If you look at the, you know, this is actually a bot which you see here, and the sophistication and the realism in the look and feel of the bot is immense. And imagine that if there are technologies like these where you can have use cases like you can interact with these people as a virtual agent, the entire BPO industry, which has been kind of the backbone of countries like India, China, Philippines, etc., for a very long period of time, if all of those can get replaced by intelligent virtual agents, then that can be a big game changer, right? So that's basically where we are headed. So now what I will do is I'll give you a quick overview of what has been the history of artificial intelligence and where are we right now. And after that, I'll explain briefly to you that what this technology really is and how does it basically work, right? Now, artificial intelligence, the birth of artificial intelligence, basically, it took place somewhere about, say, not really far ago, about 50 to 60 years back. In the year 1950, a gentleman called Alan Turing wrote a paper called Can Machines Think? And he also devised something called the Turing's test. Now there's a very good movie here called The Imitation Game. If you get a chance, please go and watch that movie. That's probably the first ever artificial intelligence based device which was ever created in the world, right? And from that point of time, it became a subject of deep scientific and academic research, and a lot of people started doing research there. Now, it was not until the late 1980s and the 1990s that a lot of work really started happening there. And some of us might remember this. There was a news which came out in the year 97 that IBM had created this artificial intelligence machine called the Deep Blue, which was able to defeat the chess grandmaster Garry Kasparov, right? And till that point of time, it was assumed that nobody can basically ever defeat a grandmaster, and a computer can remain a computer. But then it got changed completely here, right? So that is what the history has been, and a lot of artificial intelligence actually has been shown to us via a lot of movies. And I don't know how many science fiction fans do we have here, but it's a quick snapshot of all the movies which keep talking about AI. Now, what is scary is that what was shown as concepts in some of these earlier movies, they've actually become the reality today, right? And a lot of people are able to replicate some of these old concepts into reality, and that's primarily because the pace of change has been massive. So what is the true evolution of artificial intelligence, right? Now, before the 1960s, artificial intelligence was nothing more than something which could be programmed to repeat a certain set of transactions. So it was very similar to typical programming, right? Now, what is typical programming? You program a piece of computer to perform certain tasks, some repeated tasks over and over again. So before the 1960s, that is what it used to do. It was only able to repeat something. Then came true machine learning, and I'll come to this in a bit, that what machine learning is, how does it work, and all that stuff. But between 1960s and 2010, remember I said most of this work got done only in the past 50 to 60 years. It started imitating human actions and human behaviors, right? So if you have an artificial intelligence software, right? And guys, first of all, it's very important to understand that when we're talking about artificial intelligence, we are not necessarily talking about robots. We are not necessarily talking about physical objects which can move around and interact with people and do all that stuff, right? That is just a form of AI. But AI is basically algorithm. It is basically software, right? So when it started learning to imitate behavior, so it could observe a human being, for example, processing invoices, right? If it could observe a human being processing, say, 100 or 200 or maybe 1,000 different invoices, it could start picking up the pattern and imitate. Then between 2010 to 2018, you had this whole concept of deep learning, where it started learning from the different activities which it used to observe, right? So first it is just imitating what the human being is doing, but then it starts to learn. And then finally 2018 onwards, where this is where we are right now, which is technically called deep reinforcement learning, but this is where the learning itself has become automated. So the machine learns how to learn, right? You don't even have to teach it, what do you have to do to learn how to contribute or do a particular transaction. And then finally, going ahead, there is this whole concept called singularity. Some of you might have heard about this. So singularity is a state where it is said that an artificial intelligence can become as smart as a human being all across the board and all that stuff, right? If you ask me, I don't think that's happening anytime soon. That's really far away, right? And whenever you discuss about artificial intelligence, people tend to often ask me that, hey, do you believe in that, the whole fact that AI will come in and take over the world and all that? No, I don't think none of those things are true. People are in control of most of these things, right? So where are we headed, right? Mostly you've seen that there is a big data boom which has happened everywhere. And one of the important things as part of this data boom is that most of the data which gets created, it is unstructured data. Now, what is the importance of unstructured data? And now we'll slowly start taking this into the audit domain as well. When you audit certain transactions, all of that is the study of structured data. all of your data is structured in a certain way in tables, columns, in journals, ledgers, etc. However, today, the kind of data which gets generated, for example, if we are doing this conference on a platform called GoToMeeting right now, GoToMeeting is generating a lot of data right now in terms of how are people engaged with this, how many people can really basically interact with this entire information correctly, how many people are engaged, so on and so forth. So all of these things are unstructured data. We've been very good in dealing with structured data in the past, but we've not been very good in terms of dealing with unstructured data. And you need artificial intelligence as a technology to deal with unstructured data, right? And that is where the boom of unstructured artificial intelligence is going to be even massive as we basically go ahead, right? Now, very quickly, I want to tell you what AI really is and what are the different types of AI and what are the different functions of artificial intelligence, right? So that you can start distinguishing artificial intelligence as a software from other pieces of software which exist everywhere. So for artificial intelligence, the very first category is called artificial narrow intelligence. Now, what artificial narrow intelligence basically means is it specializes in one area to solve one particular problem, okay? And since it specializes in one area to solve one particular problem, it for example, if you create an artificial intelligence system to do processing of invoices or performing of an audit, that becomes an artificial narrow intelligence. Then you come to the entire field of artificial general intelligence, where the idea is that a computer can be as smart as a human being all across the board. So it can perform all tasks as a human being, so on and so forth. And then finally, you have something called artificial super intelligence or machine consciousness, where it kind of becomes a consciousness of its own and it becomes smarter than almost everybody. So if you ask me, where are we right now? We are pretty much in the phase of artificial narrow intelligence. And I don't foresee us exiting this anytime soon. It will take a lot of time to move ahead. So all the doom and gloom kind of a scenario where the bots are going to take over the world, none of that is going to happen at least anytime soon. It's right now, let's just save ourselves from the coronavirus, right? Everything else can wait. Nonetheless, so these are the three different classifications of artificial intelligence, right? And if you talk about artificial intelligence, one very interesting question which always comes to the mind, and this is again where I would request you to send me some answers. What do you think has been the biggest difference between a machine and a human being, right? What do you think is the biggest difference between a machine and a human being, where you think a human being is more superior to a machine? What do you think? Can anybody give me any thoughts on what are those cases where you think that typically we say that machines are very what do you say, more sophisticated and more advanced than human beings, but what are those cases where you think that the machines are more advanced than human beings? Can anybody give me any answer here? I'm sorry, I think my webcam was turned off. Is it turned on now?
It's turned on.
All right, great. Okay. So I am starting to get some responses. Time saving and efforts, emotional intelligence and instincts, consistency and speed in performing routine commands, adaptive thinking. Humans think, machine are under the control so far. Human brain is more powerful. Great. Guys, thank you so much for all your responses. Now, one of the biggest differences between a human being and a machine, where a human being was superior to a machine, is that a human being always learned from experiences, whereas a machine used to learn from programming, right? Now, what that basically means is that a computer software can only do what it is programmed to do, whereas a human being can do almost anything. Now, that difference is changing with this concept called machine learning, right? You would have heard about this whole concept called machine learning. Now, let me explain what machine learning really is, and then you'll understand that why this is such a big game changer in the world of technology. Now, typically there are two different, let's compare two different independent streams of thought. How do people program anything? Now, programming is the process by which a programmer basically feeds data and program into a computer, and then the computer leverages the program to turn the data into the output. So essentially here the programmer is telling the computer that, this is what you have to do with the data to get a particular output. And this is how we've all known how programming works. Now, what machine learning does, what this new technology does is that here you have a data scientist or a machine learning engineer who gives the computer the data as well as the output. And what the computer gives you is the program, right? So it's a big game changer because you don't need to tell the computer how to really solve the problem. The computer is able to create the rules and the logic to solve the problem on its own based on your telling the computer that, look, this is my data and this is what I want the output to look like. Now, how does it basically do it? The whole process by which it is able to do it is called the process of machine learning. Now, the intention here is not to get too technical, but I'll basically give you a simple example. Let's say that you want to build a program where you want to give a machine randomized images of cats and dogs, and you want the machine to correctly tell you if the supplied image is the image of a cat or if it is the image of a dog, right? And let's say you don't want to do any programming, you want to use machine learning. So how do you start this? First of all, for any machine learning or any artificial intelligence to work, you need a large amount of data. You cannot do it with a small sample set or a small data set. Unless you have a large amount of data, you can't build these models. Now, what you will do in this scenario is that you will start supplying the images of cats and dogs in a randomized order to the machine, and you will ask the machine to predict that, hey, can you please predict if it is a cat or if it is a dog? So let's say you give the machine a certain image of a cat, and right now the machine just does not know whether it is a cat or a dog. It will look at the image of the cat, it will analyze all the pixels, and then it will randomly say that, let's say it is a dog, right? Then you will tell the machine that, no, this is the wrong answer. Then this is the image of a cat. Then the machine will automatically create a programming looking at the picture saying, okay, where you have pointed ears, where you have a tail, then it is a cat. Then you give it a next image, right? And then as you keep giving it images, it keeps learning from those images and classifies the data to create an algorithm on its own, right? This is one of the techniques using which machine learning works. And there are multiple different techniques. This technique, which I told you, is called a technique of classification, but there are various other techniques which are there, right? And the intention is to not get into too much of technical details right now, but just it is good to know that what these different techniques are, right? Now, remember I said that there are these lots of confusing terms which typically gets thrown around. So I want to differentiate and let you know what is the difference between three different terms which are often used interchangeably, but they are not supposed to be used interchangeably. So the first term is artificial intelligence. Now, artificial intelligence is kind of like the broad superset, right? It is basically the entire collection of all of these technologies which is there. Within artificial intelligence, there are many different technologies which are there. For example, computer vision is also a technology within artificial intelligence, using which it can detect whatever is present within the confines of a computer screen, and then it can work with that. And then machine learning is just a form of artificial intelligence. Okay, so machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence, and then you've got something called deep learning, which is a very specialized subset of machine learning, right? Now we all know by now what machine learning is, right? We saw this in an example in the previous slide. Deep learning is basically the practice of extracting a lot of data from the subset of data which is present inside the data pack, which is being used for machine learning. Now, how many of you use Google Images, or if you've, or when you go to Netflix, you see that Netflix is able to give you your movie recommendations based on what you've seen in the past. Similarly, when you go to Amazon, it gives you recommendations of what products to buy. And a very good example actually is of Google Images. If you use Google Images and your entire photo library is stored on Google Images, you can just go there. You can type cat or a sunset or music, and then it will automatically show you images where you are at a place where there's a sunset or where there's a music or something like that, right? Now, all of these things are again possible using AI and specifically deep learning within AI. Now, deep learning uses something called artificial neural networks, right? Now, one of the ways in which the AI technology has really evolved is that it is able to mimic the human brain, and it creates a set of neural networks. So, for example, let me actually show this to you, right? So this is an example of how these neural networks work. The way neural networks basically work is that, let's say that you have a certain input, and you can see the input layer here in red color. And then after the input, you've got a certain output to work with. Between the input and the output, there is basically a processing layer, which is the hidden layer. Now, this hidden layer is something where a lot of processing takes place. So every piece of input goes through every single rule to give you a particular output. Now, let me give you an example. Let's say that you want to go out and eat ice cream, right? So your question is, should I eat ice cream or not? And you want an answer. The way a neural network works, so how does your brain think about it? Your brain will apply multiple different logic points to it, right? So for example, it will think, okay, first of all, it is locked down, so I can't go out. Let's say if lockdown was not there, then is it raining? If it is raining, I can't go out. What is the time? If it is too late, I can't go out. Do I have a cold? If I have a cold, I can't go out. So there are multiple different layers of decision making. Depending upon the layer of decision making, you basically get the output. So what an artificial neural network or deep learning does is that it puts every question through a series of algorithms, and it keeps refining these algorithms using more and more training. So training is a very, very important word when you work with artificial intelligence or machine learning, because whatever software you're using, whatever algorithms you're using, it is important for you to continuously refine it, to continuously train and retrain it till the time it keeps learning from itself and becomes better, right? So that's basically the difference between artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning. And then, there are many different examples of all of these. I already spoke about neural networks as one of them. Then after neural networks, you've got something called computer vision, which I also spoke about earlier. Computer vision is the technology. Some of us have heard about this technology called optical character recognition, or OCR, right? And it's a very, very important technology, specifically from a finance perspective, because a lot of companies today are working with automating the reading of data from documents, right? Because data entry is something which is a job which takes up a lot of manual man hours, and all it basically involves is reading data from one document and putting it into some other document. I'll actually give you an example here by which an AI-based system can automate all transactions end to end for the invoice processing function, where it reads data from an invoice and passes the journal entry, does everything, right? So I'll show you how that whole process is done. But I'm just giving you an example here of and trying to open your mind in terms of what kind of different application areas. After computer vision, you've got this technology within AI called natural language processing and speech recognition, right? Now, all of us have used this in the past. If you've used any of your mobile assistants or virtual assistants like Alexa, Siri, OK Google, the way this works is that when you speak something out, it is able to detect that waveform, and it matches that waveform with its library and converts that into text, right? So it processes that language to convert that into something meaningful. That is an example of natural language processing. Now, natural language processing, guys, is going to have a very, very deep impact in the way finance leaders of the future interact with their data. I've started to see requests where CFOs and VPs of finance, they're trying to get dashboards created where they can speak into their phone and get data. For example, if your CFO is in a certain meeting and then he wants to know that how have the profitability been for a certain department over the last year, he can just take out his phone and say that, please tell me the profitability for the Mumbai region for last quarter. And it should be able to use the natural language processing and get you the data, right? So these are some example areas where this can be implemented. Robotics, all of us know, robotics process automation, or RPA, is one of my most favorite topics, and that is a place where I have personally done a lot of work with multiple different organizations. And that basically involves automating transactions using artificial intelligence and computer software to where the bots can basically perform some of these transactions on their own, right? So all of this said, till now, just to do a quick recap, what we've done is that we've taken a look at what AI is. We've seen the history of artificial intelligence. We've seen the different types of artificial intelligence. We've seen the different subsets of the way it can be applied. We've seen what is the difference between machine learning and AI. And then, now we have a little bit of understanding of what this technology is all about. The rest of the discussion, I want to keep very, very focused around how it is impacting finance and how can it really make a big difference to audit, and what is it that I am currently seeing as big trends. Now, before that, I want to share a video of a real system, and I have implemented the system for some of my customers as well, where you are using artificial intelligence in a major way to transform finance and accounting. Now, this is an example where what we will see is we will see a combination of robotics process automation and artificial intelligence, by which the entire invoice processing function of a company is going to get automated. So I'm just going to walk you through this particular video as it basically moves forward. So IQBot here is the AI tool, and we are looking at a use case of invoice verification and approval automation in SAP. Now, in this system, what basically happens is that typically the way invoice processing works is that you receive lots of invoices. Then there is an agent who sits, downloads the invoices from various vendors, reads those invoices, extracts the data. The data is then finally entered into an ERP system. It goes through some approval process and verification process and approval process. And after the approval is done, it basically, gets converted into process data. Now here, what's going to happen is that this entire layer where human beings are reading that data and interpreting that data is replaced using artificial intelligence, right? So let's see basically how this happens. Now here, what happens is, typically in this entire flow, I'm just going to speed track this just a little bit and talk through it. The vendor sends an invoice, and then you will have a robotics process automation based system which will download the invoice, send it to this system called the IQBot. Now, IQBot here is nothing but an AI-based agent, which is going to be able to extract data from every single invoice. Now, I want to spend a little bit of time here. Remember when I was telling you about the key trends which is going to come forward, I said the most important trend is the prevalence of unstructured data. Now, let me explain the relevance of that comment in the current example here. When, let's say that, if you work for a large organization, typically you process close to 50,000 or 60,000 invoices in a year, and you will have a close to, say, 600 to 700 vendors at least. Every vendor has its own format of sending an invoice, right? Hence, using conventional programming, you can't program a system to 600 times. You can't program a system 600 times for every single vendor to extract data from different invoice types. Hence, you have a system like artificial intelligence which comes into place here. Now, what this IQBot does is that it is able to detect patterns in the invoices and automatically extract that information, right? So here, this is the place where we are just setting up the whole system. I'll skip some of it. Now, this is that place where the training is happening. Remember, I said that training is a very, very important component in all of artificial intelligence. So here, for example, on the right-hand side, you see the actual invoice. On the invoice, you see this is the name of the vendor, this is the bill to party, the ship to party, the due date, purchase order number, invoice number, line item details, etc. So you go through a whole process of training where you tell the IQBot that, okay, this means the title, this means the bill to address. These are the different ways of extracting line level information. And once you've done that, right, you do that repeatedly for a number of invoices, and after that, once the system is basically ready, what it does is that it moves through all of it in an automated way. And if you can see whatever is happening on the screen right now, which you will see just in a minute, the moment new invoices arrive by emails, the bot is able to download those emails, extract the data from the email, and it is able to automatically, post all of that data across SAP and pass the journal entries, so on and so forth, right? So that is what we can see here. And using this, if you can see now, it will go to a stage where data is extracted from the invoice successfully. This Excel file which opens up shows that. And then finally, it will also log in into SAP and then make the exact entry for that particular invoice. And once the invoice details are entered, it can also do a two-way match, three-way match, and all those different things, and do the entire end-to-end processing of the invoice in a very, very automated way, right? So that was an example of how this is being used in finance. And then, this is just a reference list of different types of algorithms. Remember, I said that there are many different ways in which a machine learning system can learn, right? The training phase or the learning phase is very important. So the techniques can be techniques like classification, clustering, anomaly detection, so on and so forth. And there are many different complex techniques which are used here. Again, the intention here is not to bombard you with jargons and technical areas, but it's a quick reference list. I'll be sharing a copy of this presentation to be shared with all of you, so you can refer to it basically in the future. Some case studies again of how this is being used in finance. For example, JP Morgan has created a very, very interesting use case by creating a platform called the Contract Intelligence or COIN platform, where it uses natural language processing to go through lots of contracts, right? So, any organization, especially a banking and a financial organization, which has to work with a lot of contracts, manual review of contracts is something which takes a lot of time. So manual review of, say, 12,000 annual commercial credit agreements usually used to take them about 3.5 lakh man hours. Now the same thing can done only in a few hours using a AI-based software. And this is another very interesting example. The next one is where, and again, there's a beautiful video on the internet for this, where somebody's built a system where a drone flies over a certain area. It finds the soil beds where it feels plants can grow, and using artificial intelligence, it automatically understands the patterns and where can these pods be thrown, and it throws out these seed pods, and then it germinates them so that you can have plants growing in there, right? So there are many of these case studies here. Now, if you ask me what are the different platforms which are typically used to build AI models, typically all the big tech organizations like Facebook, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, they are the pioneers in AI. So Amazon Web Services, Google's DeepMind and TensorFlow, IBM Watson, Microsoft's Azure and Cognitive Services, and Facebook's LearnerFlow. These are the typical platforms on which large AI-based implementations can be built. Now, what is again very interesting is that one big change in the theme of the use of technology is that earlier using technology used to be a very expensive and a difficult affair, because you had to invest as a capital investment into most of these areas. Now all of that is changing in a very, very big way, and with the emergence of software as a service model, most of these areas you can basically consume in a subscription based format, right? So for example, if you want to use IBM's natural language processing, IBM Watson's natural language processing engine, you just need to pay for the number of lines of code which you want to, or number of lines of speech which you want to convert into text, right? So it's moving into that kind of a model, which makes it very easy for us to use this as a technology. Now, let me contextualize this a little bit to Audit. Let's say that if you could build an AI-based system where the vendor balance reconfirmation can be automated, right? So there's a whole section in Audit where you have to get reconfirmation on your vendor balances and customer balances, right? So what if you could build a system which could use natural language synthesis and natural language understanding to make calls to your vendors and ask them to confirm their balances, or automatically send them emails and get data back, right? So I again know people who are working on similar use cases like these. And specifically in audit, 2 or 3 biggest trends which are going to impact audit now that there is so much sophisticated technology which exists, is that number one, people are saying that I don't want to rely on random sampling anymore. Random sampling is going to go away. Most of these organizations, and especially the large organizations who are little worried about fraud, if you've done any amount of forensics or fraud analytics, you would know that people typically hide frauds in places where you don't want to look at it, right? So that is why random sampling doesn't work. Now, with the emergence of your AI-based auditing tools and data analytics tools, you can actually do the auditing of the entire data set. That's the first thing which is going to change. The second biggest theme which I am seeing right now is that, most of the organizations will build in a component of recurring audit as a software which plugs in into their accounting system itself, right? So that if there is any anomaly in any transaction detected, that can be notified in advance. And finally, I foresee that most of the tasks which the auditors typically they do today in terms of going through all the data, compiling reports, checking all the documents, so on and so forth, all of these things can actually be automated using an AI or an RPA based software. And auditors will primarily be responsible only for looking at exceptions and things like that, right? So already we are seeing some examples of some tools which have come out in the market. For example, MindBridge, AI Auditor, Indegia. Some of these tools are out there which can, which are helping you create consolidated reports and automatically, creating some of these things for you. And specifically, what are the AI features that can be useful to audit? First, it automates repetitive learning and discovery through data. Second, it adds intelligence to your existing products. And then, it can already do a certain level of analysis of data using neural networks, so that you have to focus only on the exceptions. And again, there are some videos which I want to skip. And finally, I think I have about just 5 odd minutes left. I personally see that this whole profession is going to change in a very, very major way. Earlier, where we used to say that, I'm a tax practitioner, or I'm a direct tax practitioner, indirect tax practitioner, guys, trust me, most of these things where things are repetitive, they will be automated in some shape or form. But it's for me, it's something which is not something to be scared of, but it is something which presents massive opportunities in my view, because it's one of those times where the technology exists, but nobody knows how to use that technology contextualized to the world of finance, right? So the way we understand audit, the way we understand accounting, the way we understand taxation and all of these different worlds, I don't think anybody else does. And using technology earlier used to be expensive and complicated. Today it is not. So you will have these job descriptions like the blockchain accountant or the cybercrime accountant, analytics guru, cloud accountant specialist, data security accountant, so on and so forth. All of these different things will be there. What are the skill sets which you typically need to go through as part of all of these different opportunities? Even though there's a big list here, I would say don't focus on this big list. It is there again for your reference. For example, it will be good to know what data visualization is, some data analytics tools and things like that. But mostly curiosity and an open mind, a willingness to learn, and believing that you can use your financial domain expertise knowledge and you can basically work with it to create a difference. I have seen examples of I would say easily close to 100 chartered accountants so far, ever since I've been talking to people about this, who have created massive opportunities for themselves, and they've created GST automation software, they've created a lot of RPA based implementation, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of professional opportunity which basically lies ahead out there. And I have 5 more minutes left in my time right now, in case anybody has any questions, and if anybody has given any questions so far, I'll just take a look and answer that. But these are my credentials in case you want to be connected with me. I'll be very happy to be a part of your journey. If you have any questions with respect to how can you pick it up, or if there are any specific areas of inputs which you need. I know today was a really packed session, lot of information to grab hold of within an hour, but it's more like an initiation where you get a good overview of what AI is as a technology and what does it do and how is it impacting the world of audit. Please stay in touch with me. Here's my email address. Here's my LinkedIn handle. And I'm active on both of these areas. If there are any questions or anything which you feel I can help you with in the future, I'll be really happy to basically, help you with that. I'll just take a look at some of the questions. Yes, I will share a copy of the presentation. Please suggest some good programs, say MBA in FinTech. You don't really need to go with that right now. I think just focus on, what are the use cases for which you can build for your customers, and then based on that you can work with that. And it's easy to learn. It's not that difficult to learn as well. I covered some of the professional opportunities. What is a good course to learn more on AI, ML, RPA? So the Digital Learning Hub by ICAI has some good starter material, and then if you need something deeper, you can write to me and I can send you some. Okay, good. So I think these were most of the questions. Guys, once again, thank you so much. I hope I was able to add some value to you, and wishing all of you all the best, and wishing you that you stay safe and enjoy your next session on blockchain. Mr. Narendranath Nair is a very, very eminent faculty, and I used to work with him earlier, and he has a very interesting way of teaching as well. So I hope that you enjoy the next session on blockchain. Once again, thank you so much for having me today, and wish you guys all the best.
Thank you very much, Saurabh. Excellent presentation. This is a crisp and very short time. You could do more than justice to the topic, and also what's called, I can say you arrested the audience. I am not very deep into it, but I did not miss even a single point out of it. Thank you very much for your efforts and your achievement at this age. So thank you once again on behalf of SIRC, and we'll be in touch with you. Thank you. Sir, welcome, Narendranath sir. Very hearty welcome to you. Thank you for accepting our request, invitation to be present here to speak on blockchain technology and its impact on the world of finance. And before I hand it over to you for the final session of this series of technology learning from yesterday, I'll take the pleasure of introducing you, an engineer by qualification and a self-taught professional with over 20 years of experience in technology, sales, and finance. So, engineer specialized in sales and finance. That's special, sir. He is a co-founder of Nair Consulting, with focus areas being consulting in finance, FinApps, ops, process transformations, and trainings that help people reinvent themselves with the digital skills. Before starting up, he was general manager finance at Wipro Limited, where he was heading the pricing, customer contract management, revenue, and accounts receivable teams. He is credited with building the talent function for Wipro's corporate finance team, which has under its umbrella Wipro's flagship cohorts program and financial analyst program for chartered accountants and graduates respectively. Through the cohorts program, he has mentored close to 300 plus chartered accountants at Wipro. He holds patent in telecom networks and has also been a co-author for standards in telecommunication bodies. He is also a two-time recipient of Wipro Chairman's Best People Manager Award. That's great of you, sir. Thank you very much once again for accepting our offer, and welcome, very hearty welcome to you, and over to you.
Thank you for having me, sir. It's a pleasure to be here, an honor also. So, thank you. So, Saurabh is a good friend of mine, and when he recommended, I would like to thank him also for recommending me for the session. And I hope people will make good use of the stuff that I'm going to share today. So with your permission, if I may, I can start. Sure.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Sure. So what I planned on doing is that I wanted to demystify the concept of blockchain. You would have heard a lot of these the name in the recent months about the Bitcoin bubble and the Litecoin, the Dogecoin, and so on, and also a concept of NFT, where a GIF of a cat was sold for $60,000 or more. So I'll just demystify what this technology is about. We'll take some examples of how it's applied to finance function, but I wanted to spend more time on the technology itself so that you understand really from your heart what it means. Once you understand that, being chartered accountants, you'll be able to apply it to business much better than an engineer or anybody else. So that's what I propose to start off with. And so we have been dealing with a pandemic for the past 1.5 years now, almost, or close to more than 1 year and a few months. But apart from the pandemic, we have also been suffering with another sort of a problem, which is called that's of WhatsApp forwards. And I'm sure most of you are used to good morning and good evening and whatever forwards that come. And a lot of advice also that's given over WhatsApp. In fact, you can learn so much over WhatsApp these days, free advice. But the problem is that why do we forward these WhatsApp messages so generously? Would we forward our assets also? If suppose we were to transfer our assets to other people, would we do that with the same generosity? Obviously not, because the first one doesn't involve transfer of value. The second one involves a transfer of value. That is it, and that's the reason why we would be more open to forwarding messages which doesn't have an impact on our financial status, at least. So this brings up the concept of value, and with the concept of value, we come to the concept of trust, and a trust in a transaction. So what do we mean by trust? If you look at a US dollar bill or Indian rupee bill, if you were transported back magically, let's say in about 1,000 years back or few 500 years back, this dollar bill that has the photo of Benjamin Franklin would be of no use to you. It would be completely useless. But today, if you look at it, it is so valuable that if you show it to anybody, they'll have value. And so much so that if you look at when ISIS, the terrorist group, was active in Middle East, and they were ravaging Syria and they were attacking the banks there, though they were dead against United States, but if they got their hand on this bunch of dollar bills, they would not say that this is against our value system and all that, and we will not take this. In fact, they would have pocketed also. So such is the concept of trust in the dollar bill that even the strongest opponents of the US still do not hesitate to pocket US dollars if they get some. So similar trust that we have is in a bank also. When we say that salary is credited to our account, or when we get money into our account, actually what we are seeing today is mostly pixels on our computer screen. Very few of us would have gone to the bank to get our passbooks updated. We would do that only when we have to provide proof of residence or for some documentation. Otherwise, what we see in a phone is just pixels, and we trust that the pixel represents money, and the trust is that if I go to the bank, I can get back that money. So there is a concept of trust, and let's see how trust involves intermediaries. When we are speaking about banks, there is a bank for transfers and settlements, there are real estate brokers, there are service aggregators, there are a whole lot of intermediaries in between. And what these intermediaries provide is that they provide a concept of trust between the buyer and the seller, or the two people involved in the transaction. So let's say you are a fresh chartered accountant and you move to a big city from a small town, and you come to Bangalore or any of the big cities that are there, Chennai or Mumbai or anywhere. Now you have to rent a place there. Would you go to a broker who doesn't look trustworthy? When I say look trustworthy, imagine that the broker has an office, then you trust him a little bit more. If the broker has a table in the office, it doesn't matter what is there on the table, but the table has to look legitimate. It has, the whole setup has to look as if it is legitimate. But if you were, let's say, if you had a brand like a Nestaway or a brand like housing.com or any one of those brands, you would trust the brand more, right? And that is the concept where the intermediaries come in, and that we actually outsource our trust to the intermediary, both as a buyer and a seller. How it impacts us in the world of commerce is that typically in the world of commerce, we have to transact with people whom we don't know. We would not have met the person whom we are buying stuff for. So the street food, when we eat street food, we would not think that is it what ingredients it's made of, right? There is a concept of trust that we give to the street food vendor also. But I don't know if it has happened to you. For me as a child, my parents used to say that, my father used to say that don't eat from the street food. They make the food from the water that is used in the gutter. It was a way of dissuading me. Didn't work really. But the reason is that in that case, if you take the case of my father, he would say it's an extreme lack of trust. No trust at all. So if nobody had trust on anybody, there would be no commercial transactions. There is a set of assumed trust, and then we slowly keep on pushing it to an absolute trust. No trust is bad for commerce. Absolute trust is bad for commerce because absolute trust creates frauds and scams and cheating and so on. Absolute trust is what happened when people started putting money in I don't know if you saw recently, there have been fake Elon Musks who've been fleecing people money from some bitcoins out of people, and the estimate is that people have lost around 2.2 million, north of $2 million in giving this money to a fake Elon Musk, not the real one, of course. And the promise is that you put the money in this wallet and we will make it more and give it to you. This is the old scheme. It started off in Italy with Charles Ponzi, and then we saw again in Bernie Madoff in the US, and it keeps on going. Everywhere you have the scheme of give me money and I'll double it or I'll increase it and give it to you. So that's what happens when you have absolute trust. When we go and eat from a street food vendor, we have an assumed trust that, or we go and eat from a McDonald's, or if we go and eat from a Saravana Bhavan, there's a concept of assumed trust that this wouldn't be bad. There will be some processes, some mechanisms in place. So that's what keeps commerce alive, and therefore trust is a very important thing. And this is central to the topic that we are talking today, and that's about the blockchain topic. And let's come to that. So where we talk about blockchain. So just to recap, we have intermediaries that help people do transactions, and there is a concept of trust that the intermediaries bring in. We outsource trust to the intermediaries who ensure that these things happen. So if I have to transfer money to you, if I'm transferring through the bank, you know that the money has reached you. But if I just send you a WhatsApp message saying this is the money that I have transferred to you, you have to go and check in the bank. Why? Because you trust the bank more than you would trust an unknown person or anybody else. So what's blockchain? Honestly, if you ask me, blockchain is going to be a game changer. Though it's been told in many ways and many times, it is happening, and it is going to happen again. And the industries that it will impact is not just the finance industry. And that is important for all of you also to understand, because you as chartered accountants, you are a derivative of the business community as such. Whatever happens in the business, you should be aware of that. Only then you will be able to add value, and your understanding of the business is crucial to your success. In earlier days, it was easier. With technology, it becomes more and more complex and difficult to understand, or at least that's what it seems to be. And that's the reason why, it's a very good initiative by SIRC today to have sessions on technology where you can understand and relate how business models can work and how you can make money out of this whole thing, and also how you can utilize this to ensure giving good services to your customers and partners. So what is blockchain? Blockchain, very simply put, it's just a distributed ledger. It's a ledger, it's electronic in format, and it's distributed across the network. And in certain blockchains called public blockchain, everybody can examine the entries. So it's something like a web page you can think of where it's distributed, it is there everywhere. It is electronic in format, but it's a ledger. And the interesting thing about this is that it is not one person who is managing the ledger, or it is not the outsourced intermediary that is managing the ledger. It is the participants that are managing the ledger. And that is what is interesting about blockchain. Now think of it, intermediary versus the participants. If we were to form a group and we had trust, the reason why we can't do transactions with people who don't know is that because there's no trust. I don't trust if that person will honor the word or not. That is why we have stock exchanges, right? So that if I buy a forward contract, or sorry, buy a exchange traded fund, I know that there is a person who's selling it will indeed it will be reduced from his account, and it would be the amount will be credited to my account, right? So that's the concept of blockchain. It's a ledger. It's electronic in format. It's distributed across, and the key difference is that participants manage the entries to the ledger. Now, just pause a moment and see what happens. Think what happens when participants manage. You are outsourcing the trust not to anybody now. The trust is within the community. How does it work? We'll take it in few steps. Let's build one. Let's try to see how we can build one. So before we start the story, I would want to tell this as a story. And before we start the story, I would first like to make some introductions to our characters here today. This is Zain, Leela, Anna, and Amit. These are the people who are going to do transactions. And they want to buy, sell, and borrow and lend amongst each other. And there's also a community of people. It'll be too many people to introduce everybody by name. So I thought we'll just put it like that. A community, they would also want to transact amongst each other. So what do they transact? They would want to buy, sell, and borrow and lend stuff. Could be money, it could be goods also. How do they do that? They have a transaction record. And since it is electronic age now, they keep an electronic book of the transactions. They record all the transactions in the electronic book. So the first step, let's assume that Leela sells her guitar to Zain. Now they record this transaction in the book and they add it to the digital book. Of course, Zain pays a money to Leela, and that's also recorded. Now, once it is recorded in a book, there are a few community members who are volunteers, and they validate the transaction, which means they go and ascertain that indeed the money has been transferred from Zain to Leela, and Leela has transferred the guitar to Zain. They go to their each people's home and see, Zain has confirmed that he has got the money. Leela says, got the guitar. Leela says that I have got the money from Zain, and that is validated. They all say, okay, they show a thumbs up, and then they share the transaction. They put it on the book and they share the transaction with everybody on the group. So now everybody has that book which says that Leela has sold her guitar to Zain. Now, Leela cannot come back later and say that, look, I have not sold the guitar. At least it's there in the transaction book. So so it goes on peacefully till one of the people in the community, a chartered accountant, joins the community. As chartered accountant, you will always look at what are the loopholes, where are the problems, where can somebody commit fraud, how can something go wrong. And the CA says the idea of community buying and selling is all good. That's a fantastic idea. It's good that doing that. But there are problems with this mechanism of this electronic ledger book that you're talking about here. Sorry, this mechanism that you're talking about, there are some loopholes there. And he points out the loopholes. He says that what if someone changes a transaction? Sorry, it's just going fast. What if someone changes a transaction? Let's say an old one in the book. They go and edit it. They have computers, they edit it. Yes, everybody has it, but gives it to other people also. What if the validators collude amongst each other to authorize a fake transaction? Suppose nobody likes Leela, and they collude together, and they say that Leela has sold the guitar to Zain, whereas actually she has not sold. So what happens then? Third, what if she tries to sell the guitar twice, like a WhatsApp forward? I can't forward a guitar's image and say that, no, I've given you the guitar, right? And more importantly, how can the transaction stand up to scrutiny? These are the questions that the gentleman points out, and the solutions that they adopt is like this. They say the originator of the transaction signs a contract, and they figure out a mechanism which says that take the text in the transaction. What is the text in the transaction? Leela has sold the guitar to Zen, and Zen has paid so much money. That is the stuff that you can see here, right here. They put a digital fingerprint on it, and there's a code that is generated, and it's a unique code. That code is tied to the transaction in such a way that it forms a digital signature, and they call it hash. Then they create a page with that transaction in a book and add the reference to the previous page of the book. Now things become interesting. Huh? The page is sent to everybody in the group. The Quora of validators have to validate the transactions. They say, okay. And once it is validated, the page is added to the transaction book, and now the book is circulated. Any new transaction will thereafter refer to this page after this, something which comes after this page. So it is exactly like building a book. Now, if you've gone to a library, and I have been to some of these public libraries where miscreants, they tear a page off the book. And if you're going to a second-hand bookshop and trying to buy a book also, you can see that sometimes the book's pages are missing. But you can spot it very easily, right? Because the book has a numbering mechanism. The numbering mechanism says this is 435th page. So I would expect that next page will be 436. If it is 438, then I know that the page between has been torn off. Correct. So very similar mechanism is what blockchain uses. It refers to the previous page, and therefore it makes it into a chain or into a series of items that is there, where if you do something here in between, you can be caught. You know that the book is not genuine. That's what happens when you buy a book from the from a second-hand bookstore. Also, you see the same stuff, right? You will see that if there is a page that is missing, you said you'll go and tell the guy that I'm not going to buy this. The page is missing. Can you see if you have a different copy of this? That is a solution that they adopt. Now, while we spoke about it, we quickly glossed over this concept of, they call it the hash. And this particular, the first part is the one that was, I didn't explain in detail. So what is a hash? What is unique about it? And how can you make something that is unique? Well, it's something like this. How do you generate a hash? That is what we will look at right now. So for the hash to work, for this whole concept to work, the hash has to be strong, which means that it should not be susceptible to hack. If you put a code in a very simple manner, you can hack that code. The mechanism that has been devised to create a hash is a one-way street, which means that if you have strawberry and orange, 3 oranges and 1 strawberry, and you put it into a blender or mixie, you can make a strawberry orange juice out of it, right? But if I give you a juice, you can't make strawberry and orange out of it, right? So hashing is a one-way street. You can take the text here and convert it into a juice here, which is the output of it, which is put onto the page in your book, added into the page of your book. But you can't take it back. The hash cannot be reversed, just like you cannot take a juice and make it into an orange or a strawberry. But if I give you the recipe, I say that, you pick up these oranges, which are this exact same oranges which is there, and this strawberry, and you mix them together, and then you will have an orange strawberry juice. You could validate it, right? You could drink this juice and say, yeah, this looks like an orange strawberry juice. You might have seen the same concept if you go to a North Indian restaurant and you ask for veg kolhapuri. This is a pretty famous dish in Bangalore, veg kolhapuri or veg jaipuri or veg Hyderabadi. Now, there is no way to determine that this is veg kolhapuri, right? You cannot say that, no, this is not kolhapuri or this is not Hyderabadi. This is somewhere in Anantapur region. It does not reach Hyderabad yet. Or this has gone beyond Hyderabad and this is more like veg Lucknowi, not Hyderabadi, right? So in this case, the recipe, if it is known properly, you know this. So you have the exact recipe known, you can compare and say that, look, I have made this juice and now I know that the juice that you gave me was original. We keep it in our memory, and that's how we determine that, yes, this is actually the right juice or not. Okay. So that is generating the hash. What I will do is that in between, I'll take a pause for questions, and then we'll proceed again. Just when I complete logically one part of the section, I'll stop to take a break. So let's see how hashing works here. We have a text. We put a random number to it called a nonce. That creates a hashing, which is like a lock. And that hash which is there, that is applied to this text along with the nonce, and that is how a text plus unique number plus hash is generated. And therefore, these three things are tied together. If you change any one of these things, it will not work. How do you validate it? You take the text box. If you say that the transaction is Leela sold the guitar to Zen, if that is a transaction, you take that Leela sold the transaction which is written, you take it in the text from the block, you add the unique number which was there, which is called the nonce, and you do the hashing, and you see what you got as a result. Are these two the same? If they are the same, it means it's a genuine transaction. If it is not, then you know that this transaction, what is happening, is not genuine. There is a problem in the transaction. Okay. This is basically the concept of hashing. Now, I would want to do a demo here to show you actually what is hashing, because I'm sure you might have heard of concepts like Bitcoin mining, and all these concepts, right? So I'll just take a short pause here and show to you what exactly is hashing, and we will start from hashing, go into creating a block, and then we'll create a chain of blocks. Okay, let's go. So this is from a website. I'll share the website link with you also. It's by a gentleman called Anders Brownworth, a fantastic tool to learn blockchain or to understand this. He has made some applications there, and that's what I'm using today. Now, you can see this is the data. This is the text. This is the contract that we are talking about here. And the contract is, if we type the text, Leela sold guitar to Zen. When I'm typing, can you see that this number, the hash keeps on changing to Zen for 2,000 rupees. Now, the moment I type this, a hash is generated, and it keeps on changing. Now, this is something like a digital crypto equivalent, or it's a encrypted equivalent of this text. So this is the part where I'm taking strawberry and orange and converting it into a juice. So if somebody sees only this part, there is no way that you can make out. Let us say I hid this first part. I blocked out this part. I just scratched it out. And you have only this. There is no way that anybody can guess that this is what it means. From here to here, it is impossible. This is your orange and strawberry. This becomes your juice. Juice to this thing is different. But what you can do is that if you type it again, you will get the same stuff. So if you were to see the number here, you can just see the first 4 numbers, E5BA. I'll write it down here on my notepad here. I'll write it as E5, all small letter, B and A. And the last 4 digit is 541A. Let's just Control X this so that it's gone. Now, if we change this thing, Leela sold guitar for 2 Zen for rupees 2,000. Now, once you have that, you see that the hashes will match. And that is why the hash matches. If I said something different, if I said that instead of Leela sold the guitar, and I changed this to 5,000, I have just modified the text. See, the hashes don't match. It was E5BA and ending with 54B1, this thing doesn't match. The moment I change it back to 2000, now it matches. So this is the concept of hashing that we talked about in our presentation here. So this is the first part, which we talked about, the previous slide. Yeah, this slide where you have hashing, where they are making the hash together. This is the hashing concept. And now when you look at the next part, we'll bring in the nonce part. Go to the next tab, and this is what a block looks like. A block has a number, and the nonce, this is a number which is a nonce. You can see that this is green in color, which means the hash is linked to this nonce. If you change this nonce, it becomes red. If you change it back to 8, it becomes red. So 72608 is the nonce there. Now, if I put any transaction here, the problem with this previous part is that, this is just a transaction. This is not yet ready to be linked to the next one as a page in the book. So what we do is that we generate a random number, but a unique number, and we take a data and we would type something in here. So, hi, Suhail. Now you see this has become red, which means that this nonce and this text, which is this number and this text, doesn't give the hash. The hash is not correct. The block has been changed. This is the hash that you are getting, not this hash. So if you want to get the right hash, then what you need to do is that you have to change the nonce. If you need to have this hash, to change the nonce, and we will change that. And you can see that the nonce has changed to 60213, and the hash has become like this. Now notice this one thing, that the first four numbers are 0. You can get the nonce by trial and error also. So that is how you typically do it. When I press on the mine button, what it is doing is that it is keeping on trying one by one. It's keeping on trying that to get the nonce correct. So block is a block which has and then a unique key and this data. These two together become the hash, and that hash is what is used for our reference in the next book, and how we get next page in the book. So how we get this is by guessing what could be the number that we could get. So if we change this, we would not know. If we change this to 7809 or something, it would all change. The hash would change here. This is perfectly fine as long as this is what you are looking for. There is no problem. This hash is what is generated. But the rule that we are putting, what we do in mining is that we say, if you 6023 was a 60213 or something was a, I don't remember the number now, but in mining what we do is that we try to figure out 60213. That was the hash. Given this 60213 and the data, if you want to find a hash, then the hash has to be, if the hash is starting with 4 zeros. This is a challenge that we give. Okay, let me just explain once more, because it's a slightly complicated concept. If I can put any number here, there is no problem. This thing, number, and this hi Suhail together gives me the hash, which is what you see. If I keep changing this thing, you can see that the hash changes here, right? You can see this, if I change, the hash keeps on changing. So these two guys together give me this hash. But what I'm challenging, what I mean by mining is that I tell the computer network that find me that hash, that nonce value, where the first 4 digits of the hash start with 000. So first 4 digits of the hash is 0. Find that hash, find that nonce for me. And that is what I'm doing by mining. And that is what takes time to figure out and tell that, okay, this is the hash, this is the nonce for the hash which starts with first 4 numbers as 0. Now you can increase the chance. So this is what you mean by when people say that, can you show me, what is mining? You are asking the computer and you are giving a puzzle to the computer network and saying that find out a nonce, a number, which along with the text will give a hash where the first 4 digits starts with 0. This is a very simple explanation of the thing. So now we have created a block. Let us see a transaction, which is a blockchain demo that I have just created here. So I have a friend, Santosh Dev, and who used to work with me in Wipro long time back. And so we say that, so we have come up with an agreement. So there is and few of us have got together and we say that we'll come up with an insurance contract. We will cover each other from it if anything wrong happens. Now, wrong happens as in what I've told the gentleman's agreement amongst us is that if any one of us get caught jumping by or violating a traffic signal and we get fined, then the other person would compensate the person who is fined to the amount that is possible, as long as the fine is within 2,000 rupees. So that is an insurance contract that Santosh and I have devised. Now, we say that we lock that in a block, the first block, ignore the remaining blocks that are there. The first block, we lock it here, and we generate a nonce by mining. It is all green here. I promise to compensate Santosh up to 2,000 rupees if he gets a traffic violation. Now, this is the first one. This is the first block. So there is no previous block. This is page number 0, the first page, the cover page. This is the hash that is generated with 4 zeros. You can see that. Then what happens is that, unfortunately for Santosh, he gets caught jumping the signal at Saurabh, and he's caught and fined. So first he's caught jumping the signal. I'm sure Santosh doesn't do that, but this is just in humor, so bear with me. Santosh, sorry if I have been taking a wrong example, but no, this is the second block that gets added. An event has happened. Now Santosh has been caught. Now look at the block that is created. This block is created, let's say, by automatically the moment Santosh is fined. But look at the previous block and the hash in the first block. Do you see the linkages here? 000 A7664 ED3 and so on and so forth. So this is the hash, and it goes up to the. So this is the linking of the block. This is where we are chaining the block number 1 to block number 2 by the hash that is created. This is a unique hash. The moment I change anything, this will turn red, and this will be linked to this one. Now let's just take this a bit more further. Now amount, Santosh paid the fine of 750 rupees for that. Okay. Now the contract that comes in says that, look, Santosh has paid so much, and you see that here also that the chain is linked. The hash of block number 2 is linked to the previous one of block number 3. Now, since the amount is less than 2,000, then transfer 750 from Naren's wallet to whatever is the amount, transfer to Santosh Dev's e-wallet. That is the transaction that is happening here. Okay, now what happens is that one of us don't want to pay this. Let us say I don't want to change, I don't want to pay this thing, and we want to default on the contract. So what I can do is that I can go back to the original contract and change the number here. So let me try to do that. I'll change it to 200, just 10. But you see what has happened. The entire chain has become red, because this is the new hash. The previous hash, as per this block, is this number. That is not matching with this. And therefore, the hash has gone awry there. Now, even though this matches with the next one, what happens is that all these hashes are gone, because the first block is corrupted. The moment I change it back to 2000, all these guys are happy campers now. Now, all these are linked together, and you have now, therefore, what happens is that since it is locked and put in a certain manner, to change anything from the beginning, like taking a page of a book and not being detected, it is very difficult to do this. Now, obviously, in the real world scenario, it is slightly different. You have much more complex hashes that get generated, much more complex uh, uh, mining that is done, and mining takes a much longer period. So once I have done that, you can see that the starting numbers are like this. And you can always say that I want to start with 4 zeros or 6 zeros or 4 ones or 5 ones or different conditions you can put in there. So this is the basic concept of blockchain. And now we will go back to our PPT and see how this is actually implemented. So this is what we saw. Each record is linked to the originator of the transaction and the previous record. Any addition to the chain of blocks have to be validated by the community. So not only is if you have to change the block, that is one thing. If this guy changes something here, the community members also have the same ledger. You remember we said that the ledger is distributed to everybody. It's an electronic ledger which is distributed, and every participants are the ones that maintain the ledger. Now, therefore, everybody has to say that. So unless more than a certain number of people collude together, it will be impossible to do anything on the blockchain. So now you have so if you are transacting in an environment which is a platform that is built on blockchain, you can be rest assured that the person who's actually doing the transaction has a valid transaction that is being done. Now, if you give money to somebody, say that no Bitcoin, if I ask you that deposit some Bitcoin to me, I'll give you back. That is outside the blockchain, platform. That is between I'm cheating you with that. So that is something that the system cannot resolve. So this is the fundamentals of basics of hashing and how the chains are built in. I would want to take a pause right now to see if there are questions, and then I'll just look at the chat box. If there are questions, then we can answer them. Take a few. Yeah, sorry.
I have compiled some questions. I'll just try to flash it on screen because I didn't give you the organizer rights, so you wouldn't have seen the questions. I'll update your span organizer also after this one. I'll just take a present rights one.
Sure.
This my screen is I'm just sharing my Excel screen. So is my screen visible?
Yeah, so screen is visible. So the question that is put in here is that who selects the Quora from the community for validation? So in a blockchain community, it is a blockchain platform. The Quora is called the miners. And the miners actually take the effort of using their computing power to validate, to find the right hash. Because you see, you have to do by trial and error. If I didn't know it was 60213, I would have to keep on trying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 completely. And I have to use a computer to find the hash, find the nonce there and the right hash condition. So if I have to get that, I have to use my computer, and I have to get compensated also for that. So the miners do that. So in an implementation of blockchain, which is Bitcoin is an implementation of blockchain, the miners get a small amount of Bitcoins if they are able to solve the puzzle. What is a puzzle? The puzzle is given the text and given the nonce, given the text and given the condition of the puzzle that, find a hash which is starting with 4 zeros or starting with 5 5s in the beginning. What is the nonce? And that is how you have to solve it. Once that is solved, the first person to publish, there is a race. All people in the community who are miners in the community, and anybody can become a miner in a public blockchain. Anybody can become miner. The first guy to publish that gets compensated with some Bitcoin in the case of Bitcoin. Otherwise, they get compensated in some other ways, which they can collect the money in that. And that is in public blockchain website. Now, where can blockchain be applied in manufacturing company? Is it applied to payment transactions? Kindly provide. Okay, sorry. There are one before that. Is that what are the real-time blockchain technology used in India in finance or elsewhere? I have dedicated a section for that. I'll take you through that. I have some interesting examples that I can show you also. Where the where the blockchain can be applied in manufacturing company. Is it applied for payment transactions? Kindly provide some real life examples to understand the applications in finance and account. I'll come back to that. Again, as I said, the fourth and fifth questions are linked together. Is the validation of the community will not make a process delay, or is it quick? The validation of the community will not make a process delay, because what you are doing is not finding the nonce. What you are trying to find out is that if you're trying to match if the text is correct. So what you are getting is that you're getting the text and the hash, and then you just have to figure out if the validation is correct or not. The mining is the concept of finding out the hash, which starts with 4 zeros, given the text and what is the nonce you have to find out, so that all these three planets align together. Validation is you have all the data and you have to validate if this is correct or not, if the block has integrity or not. So it does create a delay, but depending upon the blockchain network, it can be in the scale of about few minutes. About 10 minutes is what typically they talk about. Okay. How is the first and the linking hash generated automatically, or what is the logic on that basis? So this is the and kindly how engineers built the robust hash code that nobody understands. So it is not just engineers. I can tell you. Okay, we'll just take the first question, first part of the question. The program is written in such a way that as and when the block gets added, you have a reference to the previous block in the new block. And when you are creating a hash for the new block, you have 4 elements now: the hash, the nonce, the text, and the hash. 3 elements. And 4 elements: the nonce, the text of the transaction, the hash from the previous block, and the hash that is generated, combining all these 3 together. That is what forms a block. Now for the next block, this hash, the end of the hash, which I showed you that is what goes into the next block. And so it is linked together the way I showed you there. And I have the examples also that I can show. Now this is how is it robust? It is based on a particular mathematical function. It is not invented by engineers, it's done by mathematicians. It's called a particular encryption algorithm, which is pretty complex to generate it. And you can generate it, but you cannot reverse engineer it. Actually, you can do a brute force method of reverse engineering, but it will take to hack into a Bitcoin network or Bitcoin, just to crack the hash, it would take about the capacity of around 50 times the number of servers that Google has. Capacity, that is a computing capacity that would be required. 50 times the number of servers Google has, that is the computing, and that is growing in complexity also now. So that is why it is difficult to hack. But what you can do is that once you have done it, you can compare whether it is correct or not. This nonce automatically, it is something that the computer, the program, the miners have to figure out. Figure out what is the nonce given to get a hash which satisfies a particular condition. The risk of cybersecurity, corporate governance, yes, indeed, I mean, a lot of applications are there. We will come to that. So, Selva, if you can just get me back onto the presentation, we can start. Would it be possible for me to see the comments as they come in?
So that you'll be able to see the questions also.
Great. Thank you so much. So please keep sending the questions so that I can go through that. So this is what we were talking about of linking. See, this nonce, this text, and the previous hash. This previous hash is nothing. This combined together, this gives this hash. Now, once this happens, that this element is all part of this. This previous hash becomes a part of this whole transaction, and that is why the new hash generated is dependent upon this. So if you do anything wrong here, this will get upset. That is the power of blockchain. Okay, let's go back to how the technology works. And each record is linked to the originator of the transaction and the previous record. And how does it work? A new transaction goes into a pool of unvalidated transaction or unverified transactions. And the network now throws a puzzle to the people who are participating as miners in that blockchain network, to say that given a certain condition, generate a random number which will satisfy the particular hash number that we want. So something like hash that find a nonce for given the text, what is the nonce that generates a hash that starts with XXXXX. So that is how the miners get together. Now, once that happens, now the race begins to find the hash that starts with 5 X's. The first person to find attaches the answer and puts the hash and the number, which is called the nonce. That is what the person has found. And the uniqueness of this number is linked to the text. So text and the number, of course, the number can be repeated. There are so many, the number is only 32 bits, so it can be repeated, but the number and the text and the hash become a unique combination. So once a person finds that, once she finds the right answer, she attaches the hash and the number and the nonce and says that, look, this is the proof that I have done the mining correctly. I have found this thing. Yes, I have found it. This is the proof. And I submit it to the network, and she announces the block to the community. It is like, when you have children asked to do something, and immediately one of the brightest child who finishes first, I said, yes, I'm done. So it's something like that. Now what happens that community members start getting together. Remember, validation is easier. Generating is what takes time. So to do that, if they agree, it is okay. It gets added to the blockchain. So the green block is the one that she validated here. If you can see here, this is the green block this block that she validated. It comes here and it gets added to the chain here. If it is not, the transaction is discarded. If somebody does a fake, saying that it's like when you're playing rummy and somebody says, yeah, I am done. Then it is a fake transaction, then it is discarded. In case of, if you're playing rummy, you ask the person to go out of the game. If somebody does that, right? But if there is a conflict or a error condition, then it goes back into the unverified pool. So what kind of conditions can give rise to conflicts? We will discuss that also. Now, the chain with blocks, once the block, one set of community as well, it is just broadcast to the entire network. So imagine somebody sitting in India has done a transaction, immediately once a block is added, it is advertised to the entire world. Person sitting in Brazil or Canada or New Zealand also gets the same thing replicated within minutes of the thing. Now, the blockchain design is such a way that it minimizes the conflicts that can happen. So, 2 blocks get validated simultaneously. It's the probability is very, very low. And if there is a conflict that actually happens, what does is that, let us say that in this case, the group Y validates the block, it is added into the blockchain. The chain gets replicated, starts getting replicated across the network. At that same very instant, in another corner of the world, what happens on another, 2 people create a block each, and group Z, which validates the block, and that gets added to the blockchain, and they get replicated also in their network. This starts getting replicated from one side. Now what happens? There's a conflict. There are one with one green and one with pink and yellow. So there you see the conflict starts getting highlighted. We look into the 2 chains, look at the timestamp and resolve the conflict, or in case the chain is shorter chain, then the shorter chain gets discarded. In this case, the green one goes back to the unverified pool of blocks, and the process begins all over again. So quickly to recap, how does it work? You have a group of new transaction comes in, a block gets created, the person finds the hash, digitally signed, majority validates, it gets added to the block, and the chaining of the blocks makes the blockchain immutable. If you change anything in one place, just think of it like a book. If you change this guy here, the one that is in red circle, to modify this block, you have to change everything before that. The last one you can still modify with a certain amount of computing power, but that is also phenomenally high. But if you want to modify any of the past transactions, so if you go back in time and try to modify anything, you have to modify all the blocks that have come after that. And that is why it makes it so difficult to crack the blockchain. So I hope I have answered that question, that how did they come out with a mechanism by which they could make it hack proof in some ways. It is not completely hack proof. I can tell you one concept place where it can be hacked, when it can happen, but that is not in the near future at least. So what is Bitcoin and blockchain? Bitcoin is to blockchain what website is to internet. Think of it that Bitcoin is a website and blockchain is the internet. Blockchain is a platform. That's all. Bitcoin is an application that is built on blockchain. Application is digital currency. You can build many more applications, like a website can be built on the internet. You can have other applications like mail or file transfer services. All those things can be built on the internet, right? So that is the difference between Bitcoin and blockchain. There are predominantly two types of blockchain networks. One is public network, where anybody can do. Examples are Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, Dogecoin. All these things are public blockchain, permissionless blockchain, which means nobody is required to give you permission to come in there. Private and permissioned blockchains are there, where participants in the chain can be. So if you are implementing within a company or within a group of company, a consortium of companies, you can restrict who can be the validators or who can be the miners. So that is also, the power is in technology. If you are thinking of a mechanism, and I think you should already be thinking of how this can be used in audit, how this can be used in many other sectors. So now I'll just go through the impact on the world of finance. So I'll try to take you through a cross-border transfer of money. If you have cross-border transfer of money, typically it takes sometimes days to get the money, and some from 24 hours to get the money, or depending upon where your money is coming from. And that is because you have a network of payments and settlements banks that are involved, in the process. So if you're transferring money from US to India, you have intermediary banks in between. And finally, all those intermediaries in between work together to get the money transferred from US to India. Now, when you think of blockchain, think that wherever you have an intermediary, you are outsourcing trust to that intermediary, that can be replaced to the blockchain application. That is what these guys did in Ripple. Incumbent is SWIFT, Society for Worldwide Fund Transfer. It was 47 years old, 48 years old now. And Ripple was a disruptor created in California, United States, 8 years old kid on the block. They have created a blockchain-based system for cross-border money transfer. No middlemen, no correspondent banks, and settlement is in seconds. Much lower cost than fund transfer. Because more intermediaries comes in, more people will take a cut, right? And it creates an internet for value for exchange. So internet for information exchange is around us. Internet for value exchange is what it creates. But Ripple is doing something more also. They are going into something called cryptocurrency. They have their own cryptocurrency called XPR. And that is an interesting part, because think of it, when you are converting USD to Indian rupee, you have to go through a particular clearinghouse to settle, to convert it, right? If you understand international money transfer, that's how it works. But with XPR, it doesn't need to go to convert it into any form. You can say that you can make local balances in each countries, and then you can just transfer using XPR. So let us say you have an Israeli shekel that has to be transferred to India. Typically, Israeli shekel would get converted into USD, and USD would get converted to Indian rupee. In this case, it can be done through XPR. So all the exchange conversions also can be pocketed by Ripple, and they can do it for a very small amount of money. As the volume of transactions increase, they make more money with that, with small amount of money, but large volumes. Another is the example of insurance industry. In insurance industry, if there's a flight delay insurance, Leela buys a flight delay insurance on a mobile app and says that there's a system generated smart contract, and it adds it to the blockchain. What does a smart contract say? It says that if there is a flight delay is greater than, if the flight delay is greater than 2.5 hours, then pay Leela $200. That is the insurance. Now, what the system does is that it automatically checks for flight delay on the global flight database. And once the contract obligation is triggered, whatever is the contract that has to be done, it is fulfilled immediately whenever the event happens. So the contract obligation gets fulfilled immediately when the event happens. So this is one mechanism that was there as an insurance industry where you can see application of blockchain. And again, in insurance industry, there are a lot more examples. 3 examples that I wanted to call out. One is Lemonade, which is homeowners and renters insurance. So suppose you are coming to Bangalore and you have taken a PG accommodation and you have a laptop, and you lose your laptop. Somebody steals your laptop. You can take a insurance for your objects also, and this is all done using blockchain, and the backend is blockchain. The benefit is that you don't have people to verify, validate, and all that. Now think of blockchain, and sometime back, Saurabh Goenka had taken through the various scenarios of what AI can do to you. Once you combine AI and blockchain, what happens is that you don't need intermediaries, or even intelligent intermediaries or skillful intermediaries are not required. Let us say an intermediary who's validating, who's using his or her knowledge to validate something, or skill to validate something, that can also be taken away by the entire automation that can come in. AI plus blockchain. Blockchain brings in trust, AI brings in the intelligence part of it. So second is a group of, like I gave the example of Santosh and me taking an insurance. The other one is, you can go to this Etheric site and then you can create your own blockchain service also. This is not an insurance company, but you can create your own insurance company or a blockchain insurance company or a crypto wallet. So these are the examples that are there. I'll share the slides with you. I've shared it already with SIRC and they will share it further with you. Now think of a case in auditing. See, auditors have a very difficult balancing task. People think that statutory auditors are insurers, and they don't tend to see them as assurers. There have been cases where auditors have resigned from publicly limited companies, saying that that citing differences of opinion with the management. And if you look at the auditor woes, these are only the ones that have come in a PwC article, in Economic Times article. But if you look at if you speak to within your community itself, you'll have so many woes that you will have, right? Because as an auditor or as a lead auditor, you are signing the financial statements, audited financial statements, and you are giving your personal assurance to that, which means you have a personal liability, right? It's a much more difficult thing to do. Yeah. So in auditing, how can we do this? In the use case for auditing, all the transactions that are there are recorded in a private blockchain with the auditor. Now, what does an auditor do typically? You have to go to a company, ask the employees, the finance team for data. They will take their own sweet time for giving you the data. Once they give you the data, you have to go through and then say, this data is, I want more data, give me something more, and so on. Now, SAP HANA has already implemented a blockchain there. You can use that already, when companies can already implement it already for their ERP system, where the blockchain is implemented along with the ERP system. Now, if you have that, you don't have to worry about the trustworthiness of a transaction. So, which means verification happens faster. And second is that, auditing happens every quarter. Why every quarter? Why do you need it to happen every quarter? You can do it every day with this kind of a mechanism. The moment it gets added into blockchain, it is validated, and then you have an intelligence system to validate that, yes, indeed, this is correct. Combining with AI, you don't need to do a validation, which is only on one quarter. You have to collect all the statements and then validate it. You can do it concurrently. As and when it happens, you can get it validated. Second, the time spent on blockchain assures that the data reliability and transparency. Now, the auditors can actually focus on the more subjective aspects of the audit and spend more time on the analysis and reasoning rather than data collection. That is the benefit that this can bring in. The key being that you can trust that the person that is giving you the data, the auditor can just have access to that data which is in the system. You can have an audit access, and then you can validate it. So this is these are the few examples that I wanted to share. And again, my contacts, if you need to be in touch, I'll just check if there are any further questions. Silva, can you tell me if there are questions that are come after that?
Sir, I have compiled it. I'll try to share my screen. In the meanwhile, you can also see the questions in the questions box. I'll just try to share my screen.
Okay, question. I can see. No, I can see the question. I can see it here.
Yeah, you can see timing wise. The last question.
1 second.
We stopped at.
It was actually
Until 6:37 we took, sir. 6 onwards we didn't.
My interface is very small. I'm just checking which is the.
That can be expanded if you click on that. Open up. That is it. Or else can I flash my screen?
Okay. No, got it. I got it. Yeah. Do we have only related transactions in the chain? See, that is the design of the blockchain. You can decide whether you want to have only related transactions in the chain or not. Typically, it makes sense to have related transactions in the chain. I'll explain. Smart contracts. If there are parties that are entering into a smart contract, then you can have only contract-related things in the blockchain. Similarly, you have an escrow mechanism. There also you can use blockchain there. So how can you know the detailed technicalities? So I'll just share the website that I had shown you. You can, this is the website, and you can just, it's a very simple thing. Let me just put it on the chat window. You can go to this website and start. Okay, it's sent to all. You can go through that website also, and also there is a programming language called Solidity. Many of these things are free. Once you get started from that website, you will have you'll be much more comfortable, understanding this thing in further pace. This was just to give you an introduction. What are the possibilities? And the main concept is that how does it work? What is the meaning of mining? How are the things chained together? And why does it give you a benefit of security? Why should every members be intimidated each transaction and waste time? See, the power is that, because if everybody has the access to the ledger, so in private blockchain, you can decide not to do that. In public blockchain, that is the power that you get because of that. Since everybody knows that, it's like democratization. But then again, everybody cannot use it. Everybody cannot get into mining and validating the transaction because of the computing power that is required. So I'll give you an example in manufacturing company and where we can use this. And a conventional auditor, what should I learn to keep pace with this technology? I have given the website link. So think of you can think that you have a manufacturing company that manufactures soap, or let's say food items, let's say cornflakes. Now there can be duplicate or the spurious duplicates that can come in the market. How do you contend that? The moment it is manufactured, put a QR code on that, link it with a blockchain, and link it with an app. So the buyer can say, just scan the QR code, hook up to the company's blockchain network, and validate that what is the source that this particular QR code has come from, and the box has come from. And therefore, if you are in Calcutta buying medicine, which is supposed to be in Bangalore, according to their blockchain network. The distribution, entire distribution can be tracked using blockchain, right? So then you can figure out that this is a spurious transaction that has happened. So there are many applications that can come. It is just our imagination that limits us. Like I said, this is one example of where you can have food can come in, medicine can be brought into a blockchain. Anywhere where you are outsourcing the trust to a brand, that can come in. So I think I've overshot my time by 5 minutes. I'm so sorry for that. I think there are not so many questions, and I'll stop now. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. And it was a great presentation. To be frank, being secretary of this one at the age of 61, I am not very keen on learning all these things. But you created interest in me to get into it. The terminology and all that was always looking like Greek and Latin to me. You made this blockchain so easy. That's the really technical knowledge that you have. Thank you very much for your inputs and the presentation. But all we need at any point of time, we may request you again through Saurabh Goenka ji or ourselves directly, if at all you are willing to help us out in understanding blockchain much better, or we will go to become professionalized in that area. One question, important question, which you could not see. The first question, which is the best course we can go for to learn blockchain, was the first question. So I think you could not see that on the screen.
Sure. Sure, sir. There are resources on Coursera and on Udemy, both which are available on to learn blockchain. Some of these are paid courses also, but what I would suggest is that if you can go to Ethereum, there is you can try by downloading there are some applications that are there which is called Ethereum. I'll share it in a mail which can be shared with a larger audience. I can create a list of resources. And yes, the best way to learn is just to try, and there is no penalty for trying. You can it will not like if we try things in physical world, we might damage things. Here we can always have a mechanism. Some of the websites also which are there on the web page, once we understand the concept, we can learn this much better. There are also some places which specifically for people who are not wanting to do programming, you can develop your own applications also without writing a single line of code, as long as you have the logic. So I'll share those resources also in a mail which can be forwarded to the participants today, sir.
Thank you very much. So thank you for your time and the efforts in doing this one, your passion to teach also. On behalf of ICAI, wholeheartedly thank you for the time that you have given. I thank delegates also for the keen interest that you have been showing since last day, since yesterday, in learning this. If at all this really helps, we will go for a separate course like to enrich your knowledge in the days to come. So thank you very much, the chairman also in absentia, and also Saurabh ji for getting you to our forum, Narendranath ji, and also our chairman for selecting this topic, and technical hands for supporting this, Selva and Mahesh Kumar. Both of you, I thank you very much, and also SIRC back office. Thank you one and all, and have a nice learning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me.
Stay safe, stay healthy, sir. Thank you.
Stay safe.